Just a disclaimer, if the video looks awful, it's because we're trying some new settings.
Alright, well,
I knew it. Every video. I was trying to got super quiet there.
Alright, RAI Adventures, we're back with another build video for the Four Winds boat project. We finally got our engine back and it's time to assemble it. Okay, what I have to do right now is I have to finish putting in these freeze plugs on the back of the engine. And they are these threaded plugs. I'm gonna put a little bit of this Permatex. We're gonna close up these passages. As you can see, it's getting everywhere. Alright, now we rotated the engine over. First thing I'm going to do is install the camshaft. You can help guide it through without the crank in the way. So you can never be too clean when you're assembling an engine. So what I'm going to do right now, even though this was washed after it was painted and it was been in a plastic bag until we started filming today, I'm still going to go through and wipe off all the cam bearings. And as I wipe off the cam bearing, I want to make sure that the hole in the bearing is facing up towards me, because that's where the oil passage is through the block. And if the hole is on the bottom, oil is not going to make it down to the camshaft. So in other words, you never trust your machinist. Always double check. So I have my assembly lube. I'm going to go ahead and lube up all the journals for the camshaft. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get down through here. I'm going to put a little dollop on all the bearing surfaces. Run it around at the sticky stuff. Now that I have this all lubed up and my glove ripped, so it was pointless to wear the gloves.
Gloves suck, they rip all the time.
Smooth sides going in, side with that is going out.
Do you want me to feed it in?
Okay, now that the cam's installed, we're going to move on to the crank. My main bearings were installed at the machine shop because I had no information on this engine, so he wanted to clearance everything. So all my main bearings and my crank and everything have already been clearanced. He has everything marked where they go. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure all the surfaces are clean up here now. If you're in doubt, just wipe it off. The ones in the engine block, as you can see, are the ones with the holes, because that's where the oil will come from, to oil the crankshaft. Alright, so I'm going to go grab the crank. I'm going to lube these bearings up, but I don't want to get lube up on where the bolts are. So you want to set this down in here as evenly as you can. Once it's in there, do not rotate it. Okay, I'm just lubing this bearing like I did the bottom. You note there's no hole on the ones that go up towards you, which would be the bottom of the engine. On the Fords, these are marked number 1 with an arrow. Arrow points towards the front of the engine. So 1 is there. I'm just gonna stick it in there. Stick it in there. Number 2. Number 3. Number 3 is your thrust bearing. Alright, so the sequence goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No matter what you're doing, do it in that order. So I'm just going to take 1 down snug, 2 down snug, 3 down, 4, Alright, now that they're all snug, to set the thrust, you're just going to take a little dead blow hammer, you're going to tap it to the back, tap it to the front, that's it. Now I'm going to set up my torque wrench to 22 foot-pounds and I'm going to go through the sequence again. Now that I went through 22, now it's 44. Now all the way up to the big number 70. And there, now your crankshaft is installed. And it spins freely. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my dial indicator here on the end. We'll have Ryan reposition the camera and we'll check the thrust, make sure it's in spec. Alright, with my magnetic dial indicator set at 0, I'm going to take a prying device in between one of the weights and the block, and I'm going to pry it one way or the other. We want anywhere between 1 and 1.5 thousandths. Now with that set on 0, you can see it moves about 1 thousandth. Okay, we are up to the pistons. Ford numbers theirs from the passenger side of the engine, 1, 2, 3, 4, to the driver's side of the engine, back to the front, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to start with cylinder number 1. My pistons were already installed and balanced. They ground balanced, press fit the wrist pins in, and the rings have already been gapped. This side of the piston faces the front of the engine. So the oil ring gap is right there. The bottom ring is gapped on the front. The top of the oil ring is gapped on the back. And then these other 2 rings, the next ring up, is gapped on the front and gapped on the back. You always want the gaps opposite each other. All right, I'm gonna start here on cylinder 1. First of all, I'm gonna wipe it out. We're gonna take piston 1. The big chamfer goes towards the crank. The little to no chamfer goes towards another piston. So what I did is I soaked the skirt, all the rings down with oil. Little chamfer is going to go to the next piston. We're just going to gently set this down in there. Now we're going to get our ring compressing little band. As I tap this piston down in, I'm just going to make sure that I don't smack anything with the rod end. Now see that popped off. Now I'm just going to lightly tap it so it goes down onto the crank. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to rotate the engine around so you can see me connecting the rod. Okay, again, big chamfer goes to the crank. Little to no chamfer goes to the next piston. Now my machine shop also marked them so I wouldn't get confused. Okay, I'm going to take my ratchet. I'm just going to snug that down for now. Evenly.
This things act as weights.
Hmm?
These act as weights to
These are,
balance it.
yes, these are counterweights to the piston.
They weigh the same amount as the piston.
I don't know, I'm not an engine builder. Alright, then I'm going to take my torque wrench. Since I'm using the stock hardware calls for about 45 foot-pounds. So we're going to set it at my torque wrench at 20. Just keep going evenly till it clicks. Since it's so light, you're not going to hear it click, but trust me, it clicked. Now I'm going to take it up another 10 pounds. I'm going to go up to 30. I like to go about a quarter turn at a time. Now I'm going up to my final number, what should be about, we're going to go 45. Gonna rotate it around, make sure everything clears. And it did. You want a little movement in it, but you don't want any up and down movement, and there's none. Repeat this step 7 more times. Nothing hits, nothing binds. So I'm gonna take this around to that tiny mark. One's at top dead center.